Who should you pick from this CYL batch? Who is going to have the most value over the next 2 years, and how do these units stack up? Where do they rank? What are their pros and cons? We're going to go over a ton of stuff. In order to do that, we're going to compare these units to past CYL units upon release. Just a reminder, the way I'm doing this rubric is player base impact is the most important thing. Popular modes are rated higher. If you can use a unit more, that's rated higher. Second is, this is from release to refine. And third is, we're not considering fodder. All of these things are things that we're trying to project into the future, which is near impossible, but we're going to do it anyway. And we're going to start off with probably the safest pick from this batch.
You won't get past me!
The day that Robin dropped, everyone declared this as the absolute winner of CYL, and it's not hard to see why. If we look at the weapon, you have slaying and huge amounts of debuffs. Attack speed res minus 19 in total for the kit. Null penalties, null guard, piercing. You give visible buffs and Canto to your allies. You give Hush Spectrum and Panic to foes. This is a great unit. But then we look at Divine Vein Ice, and that's where things get really interesting. If you look at the state of the game right now, it moves very, very fast. I'm not talking about power creep here. I'm talking about all the warping shenanigans and being able to move across the map in a single turn. That's crazy, and they needed something to slow that down, and I believe that Divine Vein Ice is their attempt at that. I think it's going to do a good job. I've been testing this a ton and I like it a lot. I think it's going to give this unit value far into the future, but let's look at a replay here and understand that you're not going to be doing this way on a player phase clear, but I wanted to show how many actions it took to get through all of this Divine Vein Ice. This team has a possible 12 actions, which on another day, in another meta, would be amazing. But you have to break ice and get through units, and then break ice again, and then get buildings, and on and on and on. It makes for a real slog, and that's what I'm talking about with, well, units like Felix, who can have multiple actions and ignore traps. You can really kind of slow them down, which is phenomenal for what you need to do on defense. For a long time, we have had offense be way overpowered and just stomping defenses. I believe that's going to come to an end with a lot of these units, and we'll talk about why, but this one in particular I think is going to be a must-have if player phase teams are what's stopping you. This is an amazing unit. She can nuke well. The ability to put out buffs and debuffs, and on top of that put ice terrain, is really phenomenal. Now, you can see I make it, but I have to take 2 deaths in order to make this clear. That is something to take note of if you're a defense fan. When we look at her overall picture, I think the upside is relevant supports versus major threats. 2 things that are threatening the meta right now. So many actions and warping, and I think she helps versus both of those. The other thing is the terrain doesn't take a turn to activate, and I cannot say enough how huge that is. The fact that you have that active immediately is a big deal and will help her a ton. The other thing is supportive nuke is clearly the best archetype in the game and ages best. In particular, ranged supportive nuke is absolutely fantastic. The downside, a lot of this, and the reason folks are latching onto her so hard, is because these are all old effects. We know what they do. You know what you get with this unit. The other thing you need to watch out for is Divine Veins are plentiful. One of the big ways that I'm countering this right now is I'll go in with either Golveg or Edelgard, and their Divine Vein Flame melts the ice. So that is something you need to watch out for. But I still think this unit is absolutely fantastic. If we're looking at the ceiling for this unit, I think about tier A with Veronica. And Veronica was so fantastic for supporting both her allies and debuffing the foes, as well as being an excellent nuke for a long time. She was the go-to unit on Aether Rays as far as healers go for quite a while. The floor, I think about Micaiah. Micaiah was very good when she first came out, offering orders and debuffs, and was really fantastic, but didn't quite have the height of power that Veronica did. I think the best comparison to this unit is the way we felt about Legendary Cam when she first came out. Giving out piercing was so critical to the meta. The thing that you want to watch out with Cam is how that faded when everyone else got it. And that is possible. We've just talked about Brave Male Robin and how so many versions of him came out that it devalued what he did. But I understand that I really want to go back to the note line. You remember the Sigurd note line was such a big deal, and the reason this was such a problem is because we have too small of a map for the number of spaces you could cover. You could have Sigurd literally travel from one corner of the map to the next and give extra movement to all of his friends who could then also do the same. They had to have a way to slow this down, and so they gave us safety fence. Understand, this unit has a really good range. This is the tightest range, like A to B, that is fantastic. Where do we rank her though? Right now, I've got her in A tier, and I think this is probably as high as she goes. I need you to remember that A tier is very good. In fact, all of these from C tier up are very usable units. It's when you get into D and E that you really start to struggle. A tier is excellent though, and this unit can contribute a lot. I think this is the safest pick in the bunch because again, we know exactly what she is. But next up, we're going to cover a unit that has a little more variability.
Stay alive, Bernie.
I feel like fewer people are talking about Bernadetta than any other unit, which kind of amazes me because this is a very, very solid kit, and I like this unit a ton. If you look at just the weapon, I would have liked a little more, but Slaying, Canto, Dual Phase Brave, which is always good, lots of stats, true damage, and piercing. This is a great weapon. I needed like one more thing possibly, but I think we make up for that with Paranoia, and this Preference C is incredible, giving no follow-up to this unit, and then Paranoia to all of her friends, which is Desperation and Vantage. Giving that out to folks in 2 spaces is incredibly powerful and can open up a lot of new wrinkles to things that happen. The other thing that is really interesting is the penalty reflection, where she's cleansing herself and then reflecting back penalties to whatever closest foe there is and the foes within 2 spaces of them. That is a really neat thing that I think is going to be not the headliner, but a very, very solid thing behind that. So I want you to look at this replay, and the thing I keep hearing is that she lacks killing power, which I think is really interesting. I have not experienced that, and I've done a lot of work with this unit. Again, we talked about it in the review, but I don't think she's just going to flat out kill Ike, but she is an excellent follow-up unit. You can see here, Hathran comes in, smacks her, and because of Nurgle, takes away a lot of the bonuses that are associated with Ike. But I mean, next one up, we have Bernie coming in, and this is 1, 2, and 3 hits. We're not even getting to the 4th, and Ike goes down. This is what I'm talking about. This is not a set-up situation. These are real teams that people use. This is about how they use them. So understand that this unit has a lot of potential, a lot of killing power. This is the part that I want you to pay attention to, and that's Vantage to everyone. This is incredibly powerful for follow-up turns with defense and summoner duels as well. The thing we're seeing a lot on defense now is as things get harder, folks are now taking more deaths on offense. That's just the way it goes, and it's not because they're out to get you, defense lovers, it's just because they're having a hard time. Understand that. But what's happening is if you can then take one death and take out the entire rest of the team, they'll take that. What Vantage does is make it so much harder to finish the team off. And you can see my AoE Nithavalir cannot take out anybody on this map right now, which is crazy. That is something that is a boon and will really help you versus the enemy phase players that you need to have follow-up stuff on. As far as on offense, I think this unit is less good there, although I do think in certain circumstances this unit could be used as an Omni tank. The problem is everyone's so bulky right now. If you think just here, you've got Nurgle and Micaiah and Hathran and Freyr and even the Byleth. All of these are units that they're going to be very difficult to take down even with a Brave hit. So I don't think she has enough firepower to be an Omni tank. But as a nuke, I think she is absolutely fantastic, and the additional support she gives is pretty incredible and is going to help you out a ton on things not turn 1. Like, she's not going to help you on the turn 1 player phase clears. Past that, though, I think this is an incredible support. If we step back and look at the big picture, I think upside we have, Vantage Desperation is incredibly powerful and good. Debuff mirroring is anti-meta and can help you out a ton. But the thing that this unit does is provide unpredictability, which, as you know, for SD or AR is incredibly powerful. If you can have some misdirection and fool your opponent, 9 times out of 10, that means you've won. The downside is this unit is very much tied to damage potential. The support is not strong enough for her to stand on her own. This isn't like Nurgle. Even if Nurgle wasn't a good nuke, the power in his support would mean we'd probably still have him on our teams. Vantage Desperation is not going to do that for you. So I worry about long term for this unit, how she will fare. As far as the ceiling, if you look at where Soren is, I think that is her absolute peak, and Soren being an incredibly unique unit that has niche use cases, but can't be used everywhere. And I think the floor is Brave Byleth, and I worry a lot about Brave Byleth. Brave Byleth having Vantage and being unique as a flyer was someone that was really cool, but never really materialized into a meta unit because she was difficult to use and had a lot of counters. Hardy Bearing is always there, and it makes Vantage less good. For a comparison, I really do like the Legendary Robin comparison, and I'm not saying that Bernie will reach those heights, but if you think about how good Grand Strategy was in the meta at the time, I think Vantage Desperation could definitely hold that spot and could be someone who gains value over time as we get more uses for her and discover more about her. If we look at her rankings, I've got her in B tier. I don't have her close to bumping to A, to be honest. And that's just a prediction for now. Again, if we get more uses, I think she could definitely bump up to that level. But again, remember, her floor is dropping all the way to C down to that Byleth level. So keep that in mind. I still think this is an excellent unit and has some use cases that are just fantastic for her. But let's talk about a unit that everyone is just scrambling about right now.
You think this is a game?
I feel like everyone is scrambling to tell you how good Felix is. And I'll be honest, they're not wrong. Like, this weapon is probably the most boring in the patch, but Slaying -2 is incredibly good. Distant counter, Hexblade, lots of stats, Null Guard, and Piercing. It sounds basic, but this is a lot of good stuff. It's Lone Wolf when we really get into it. We have Phantom Speed +7, which everyone is confused about. You have an extra action if you don't have an assist. You have free Gale Force, you have debuffs, true damage, and flat DR to hold this unit up. And the big thing is, right? The big thing is the 3 actions, and the fact that because of these 3 actions, you can go onto a trap for free. That's incredible. It devalues traps so much, and I am anxious to see how many great ways people use this unit. Let's look at a replay and talk about the best thing about Felix. We talked about unpredictability when it comes to Bernie, but she's got nothing on Felix because of these 3 actions. And you're going to watch me set this up, and I've got to tell you, I was very impressed by this defense by Tacho. I don't know where he got it in his head that he was bad at these, but he is an excellent maker of these, and just watch. Alfonse comes in because Alfonse is annoying and survives everyone and scoots off to the side. Then we have the main attraction here with Felix. Can Felix kill Ike? It takes a lot of hits. He can do it eventually, I will tell you, but it does take a lot. What you're going to see here, though, is extra range, Celica Ring scoots right past and smacks my backline. The other thing is, once this happens, Felix is actually pretty hard to kill because of all of the flat DR and regular DR in the weapon. It means that this unit is going to have a lot of different places that he can be used and is going to be annoying in all of them. When we look at the overall picture, the upside, multiple actions, always good. AoE unit, long shelf life, excellent nuking potential. This unit right now is good in every single mode except for SD, where he's above average. He's above average there. He is fantastic in all of the others. I want you to think about in Arena, having this unit move 3 spaces, pause, then move 3 spaces again. That is a ton of infantry range that cannot be stopped by trenches. That's terrifying and very, very annoying, especially when you take into consideration how hard he is to kill. The downside, and we've seen this, and we're going to talk about this with Seliph, who I think is his ceiling. Seliph during his first 2 years was incredible and is still going, although has definitely tailored off a bit. But the impact that Seliph has is still felt now because of how unique he was. I think we're getting the same thing with Felix. The thing that stopped Seliph from being amazing and elite was that his nuking potential dropped. And that is a big, big deal. For units like Brave Felix, and I'm going to bring up Winter Edelgard because I think they are very similar units, and that Winter Edelgard is also good in every single mode, has multiple actions, and defined how Gale Force was done for a long time. Brave Felix should be very similar. The thing that stops Edelgard right now, again, is killing power. The argument is that once that drops off, you have a pure AoE nuke and Felix can last even longer. So keep that in mind. Remember, slaying -2 is kind of incredible. The thing you want to watch is player phase units have less impact. And that is not to say they don't last a long time. Player phase units generally last longer than other types of units. But if you look at how hard they hit the meta, normally it is muted. But I mean, you're going to see, I have 2 player phase units in S tier. So I still think this is an incredibly good unit. If we look at the floor, I'm really looking at Marianne. And Marianne was always good, but didn't have quite the impact in the meta that some of these other units had. If we look at my ranking, I do have this unit in S tier. I have him below Seliph, and the reason is the time that Seliph came out. That was so unique to have both Miracle and extra movement in a cav. That was incredible. And while Felix is definitely unique and being able to essentially ignore traps is incredible, I don't know that it has quite the same impact as extra movement cav with Miracle. It just, we aren't quite there yet with Felix, but I'm still, S tier is very, very high, and I think this is deserved for this unit because, again, in Arena, he's going to be a terror. ARD, he's going to be just a monster, and I think he's going to define Gale Force in Aetherid's offense as of right now. But it's time to talk about probably the most controversial unit in this entire batch.
Asker is open to all.
The number of hours of conversation I've had about this unit has passed double digits now, and this unit is incredibly unique and does something completely different than anyone else has, and that means it takes some time to figure out what in the world is going on. The weapon itself is very good. Slaying, Canto, lots of stats, extra movement because, you know, 4 movement calves are a thing. Times pulse 4. Huge amounts of in-combat debuffs and buffs. True damage, flat damage, null DR, but the special is where things get a little crazy. You have extra damage, unpierceable DR, and great talent, which is the thing that everyone has been talking about. These are raw stats that you are putting on a unit that at this point cannot be taken away. And it goes back to the question, are stats good? The answer has always been, if there's enough of them, then yes. Let's look at a replay, and let me be clear. When this unit works, it's spectacular. It's the kind of thing that you tell your friends about. This unit is going to come in, and this is kind of how you want to do this unit on offense. You're going to come in, smack the other units, and build up stats. Right there, you got 6 stats on this unit, which is really nice, right? You're going to come in again, and because of the additional turn and this attack with your special, you're going to get an additional 6. Now, you sit and wait. What I will point out is the biggest thing they did here was take out Embla, which was giving everyone else special charging, and that was how this team relied on doing damage. Without that, you're seeing just tings all over the place, including Micaiah, who has effective damage and still just doesn't matter. This looks incredible, right? I mean, folks are falling left and right. I'll spoil you here. Alfonse wins, and wins in spectacular fashion. And because he doesn't have Null C, that means that he can wait until the very last minute to destroy one of the healers and just run around and get pots. So, the problem is, for every one of these, you have one of these. And this is the other thing I see happen, because remember, teams right now are used to dealing with Ike, a very high bulk, low speed Omni tank that can just absolutely smack things. This unit comes in and destroys Myrrh, which is not a small feat. Myrrh is a very bulky unit. And then just like the other time, he's going to try to sit there and take these hits. And it's not going to work this time. There are a lot of reasons for this, but mostly it's setup problems. This team was set up much, much better and has better damage dealers than the last one. That means Alfonse is going to struggle more with that. So, are there cases where Alfonse is going to do amazing? Yes. Are there cases where Alfonse is going to fall flat on his face? Also, yes. All right, let's look at the big picture. The biggest thing is this is a new mechanic and it needs experimentation. This unit gets stronger with more turns and the buffs can't be taken away. The downside is this unit gets stronger with more turns, meaning that towards the beginning, he's not as strong. And keep in mind, the competitive modes right now really reward you to strike early, hard, and fast. You most of the time want to be going on turn 1 unless you're using the Bolt Tower. And even then, waiting 3 turns can be very difficult with some of the teams that they have right now, particularly with Celica and the Celica Ring. It increases their range dramatically. The other thing is the support is minimal, and I understand. He is giving out stats to his allies. You have to attack to get them done. And that is something that is harder to work with than you think. We have an entire history of units like this that looked amazing on paper, and then you found out the action that you had to take in order to get that done, and it became much harder to use them. When we talk about the ceiling for this unit, I really think you want to talk about Erica. And we hit it at the very beginning of this, but since there's no real competitive mode that takes advantage of this unit, he's gonna need something else to come along to really make him meta relevant. I think he can be used, although he's not the highest scorer, he can definitely be used in Arena. I think he will be usable on Aether-Raid's offense, but he is already not the best Omni tank, and you guys have seen how quickly those fade off. The other thing is using him on defense, which is really interesting, especially when you pair him with Nurgle. Having someone who survives and then lets everyone come in and pounce is very advantageous. But you can see this game isn't built for bulky calves that take a long time to warm up. Now, if that changes, this unit could see a lot of uptick in value. Now, you're not going to want to hear the floor, but it's Tiki. Tiki, believe it or not, had a lot of support when she first came out. and there were things that were just missing. One of them was null counter disrupt. The problem is this unit already has some very definite counters, and when you look at that, there's definitely concern about the unit falling off. What this unit is amazing at, though, is being a wall. And if you want to talk about Ecthenir, I think it's an excellent comparison, where this unit, Ecthenir is an incredible unit. He really is. The problem is his use case is limited, and because he's an astromythic on top of all that, it makes it even harder. But if you look at how people are using Ecthenir, those who have him on their team are enjoying him a ton. He has a lot of amazing uses, so just keep that in mind. My final ranking, I think this guy is going to be around Gatekeeper. And keep in mind, I am not one of the folks who hates on Gatekeeper. I think Gatekeeper definitely has his uses and is still being used for those to this day because of how unique he was. Giving out flat stats right now is incredibly unique and powerful. There are modes and ways you can use Alfonse that are incredible. I think PvE is an excellent use of him, and it is too much fun. I love PvE, so don't take this as a slight. I think that is an amazing way to use him. I've seen a lot of people have some theories on how to use him in summoner duels, but again, a lot of people use Gatekeeper there as well. You can see the comparisons that I'm drawing. Just know that if he's your favorite, what I'm saying is that he's good now and will be good for a while. I am not saying that he will have a meta impact. Looking at the entire picture on the way too early projections for how these units will do over the next 2 years, I definitely have Felix up first, but I think all of these units are good. The one that had the greatest variability was Alfonse, and again, that's because we don't know what he is yet. So we'll be looking into that. I still think he'll land in about the B tier, but hey, next year, you can look at this and you can make fun of me for all the things that I got wrong. In fact, I'll probably make a video about it. If you're looking for the original tier list where I have all these placed, I'll leave a link right here. Members, you are amazing and do so much for the channel. Thank you for all that you do. Take care and schedule an appointment with your Fehologist real soon.